Greetings. Well, I tell you what, if you live here in Hawaii, you know what I mean when I say weeds, 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 weeds. Always getting into the gardener's work. The weeds are everywhere, ever present and vigorous. We get, between probably about 60 inches and 150 inches or more of rain over most of this island. Yeah, and it's warm all year. That's enough to get weeds to grow really well. And so we need solutions. I'm going to talk about just one today. The use of herbicides, organic herbicides. Don't get scared and run away, okay? There are so many ways to control weeds, so many ways. I never talk about herbicides though, because, people sometimes get the wrong impression. For instance, if I say insecticide, but I'm referring to an organic type insecticide, which might be a bacteria or even soap, neem. Those are insecticides, actually. People get worried. Don't worry, it's cool. Check this out, though.
So here you can get a pretty darn good look at how thick the vegetation gets around here.
Anybody who doesn't believe me how thick the weeds can get in a rainforest, check this out. If you fall in this stuff, it's almost impossible to get out of it. I have at least 2/3 of an acre of this left that I haven't done anything with. And I've never set foot on it. You can't walk in there.
Right over here, though, you can see along the edge of my driveway where I have sprayed. This is a combination of 30% vinegar, water, and soap in combination. And you can see it's green right there, but it's dead there. Looks pretty good, huh? Almost as lethal as some of those more toxic herbicides. Really burns the stuff out.
Now you can see that the results, that was sprayed about a week and a half ago. It takes a little while for these herbicides to take effect, but they do work. They don't work on everything, but let's discuss the product itself first, all right? Now, this is a homemade herbicide. There are products on the market that are organic, that are already formulated. There's probably one out there still called Burnout, which is an organic herbicide. Not very cheap, but it's out there. Otherwise, though, what I'm using is industrial strength vinegar. This is 30% solution vinegar. This is the stuff that you dilute down with water to get it down to where you could, do a pickle. This stuff's actually a little harsh on the skin. It's pretty strong acid. I use this in combination with water, usually about 1/3 of this in volume with 2/3 water to a gallon. It becomes much more effective if you use some shampoo. Now, what's in here are materials that work as surfactants. They're going to work to spread the stuff, and to stick it and make it soak in. And you only really need a couple tablespoons of this, maybe in a gallon, to make it work well. But things like sodium laurate, sodium lauryl sulfate, and blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of different chemicals in here that really are surfactants. You could also use dish detergent. And in the mix, the dish detergent will also work. Again, these are stickers and spreaders. We call them surfactants. They make the stuff dissolve inside the water nicely and then make it adhere and soak in on the plant materials. Now, if you really want to go to town with an organic herbicide, try using clove oil in it. About a tablespoon of this stuff in 1 gallon of water, along with the 30% vinegar and the shampoo, will really, really toast a weed. Now, clove oil is a little expensive, but for people who have small gardens, little projects, they probably afford to use this stuff. It makes the product smell a little better, but it's also an additive that you can put in here that will make this work better. Now, let's talk about the tool that we spread it with. Okay. Now, I'm aware that there are a lot of gardeners out there that really seem to have an aversion towards things like tank sprayers and backpack sprayers. It is a possibility some of this comes about because, well, you have to mix. Perhaps the people don't like mixing. When you have a tank sprayer, you must make a mix. Or sometimes I think it's because when I ran the nursery in California, I used to get so many Hudson and sprayers back, busted, sometimes almost new, because what would happen is folks would use the sprayer, they'd leave the chemicals inside, they'd put it on the shelf, and then they'd come back in a year and go to spray the roses. Well, the entire thing would be gummed up, seals eaten, corroded, you know. You gotta clean these tools out. When you're all done with doing your work, you spray out all the rest of the material, or if you can't, then try storing it in a jug or something for the next time around, and then get in here and clean this thing out with water. And you blow water through the wand too. It's important. You know, fill it up with some clean water, close it, pressurize it, open it up, so you clean the tube, the valve, and everything out. And then you dump all the water out, put it all back together one more time, pressurize it, and blow all the water out of it too. Okay? Yeah, you wanna make sure that you're pushing air through your sprayer before you put it on the shelf, and then put it back on the shelf with the plunger loose and removed. That helps. That way the air can get in there and everything will dry out. And if you keep them dry, they last for years and years. Yes, I have sprayers myself that are still in use, that are 20 years old. I have had to put, a seal now and then here or there, a piece in them, but they're still working. My backpack sprayer over there in the shed, definitely, it's a nice Solo. That one's been around with me for a long time now. Anywho, so there's the proper tools. Here's your materials if you want to concoct your own organic herbicide. Something else I might mention is that you have a nozzle on almost any sprayer, and if you turn it down all the way, it either shuts itself off or it creates a really fine fog. When you're using an herbicide, you don't want a fine fog. Ever. Never. You want to crank the nozzle out so you've got a heavy stream like that. So it looks like a little boy in the bathroom. Yeah, you want a nice heavy stream with droplets that will fall to the ground rapidly, because otherwise, if you have a mist, it's going to pick up in the breeze, it's going to carry, and it's going to go all over. And it doesn't really matter whether it's an organic herbicide or it's Roundup, it still kills, Okay, so then let's talk about surface top kill herbicides as compared to translocation. Now, in organic herbicides, there is no such thing, to my knowledge, as a translocating herbicide. Any types of herbicides available that are considered to be organic, they're going to be top kill. In other words, they're going to hit the top of the plant, and they're going to kill everything that's there, but they might not take the root out, depending. In the case if it's seedling weeds that are annuals and they're not very big, the vinegar will probably kill the entire plant. It probably will not come back. On the other hand, when you have something that's got stored energy, taproots, bulbs, rhizomes, let's see, in the east and the north you got quackgrass, right? It's got that runner underneath. In the west, you got Bermuda grass. Here we have Bermuda grass. We got Wainaku grass. I got itchy crabgrass. We got all these different crazy grasses that run they're just nuts. Okay, yeah. And so those types of grasses, if you use a non-translocating herbicide on them, it's going to burn the top off the plant. They'll turn brown, but then they're going to push new shoots. And so if you want to use an organic herbicide, you're going to have to go back and make reapplications. And so you basically spray the area, watch everything die, and then once you see something come back green, when there's enough of it to bother with, you go back and you reapply. Eventually what happens is you will starve the rhizome or the bulb or whatever it is that's down there. And it will run out of food and cannot produce any more shoots and will then die in the soil. On the other hand, for those of you who really don't care one way or another about using chemicals, materials like glyphosate, which is the chemical name for Roundup, those are what we call translocating. There's a lot of debate over health issues and whatnot. So I'm not going to get into any of that. I personally don't care for those types of herbicides myself either, but sometimes here in Hawaii, in a rainforest, in a jungle, gardening is more like an sport and an extreme activity than it is like a pastime. And so, I use flamethrowers, machetes, weed whackers, herbicides. I mean, the jungle is always encroaching. And so there are places and times, especially along my fence lines, where I will use translocating herbicides because I do not want stuff coming up on my fence line. So, however you feel about it. But the issue is if you have plants that have stored energy, sometimes even translocating herbicides will not be able to knock them out. But that is the sort of herbicide you will need to use if you plan to, really do quick work with a perennial weed that has stored energy. Otherwise, we have mulches, we have impervious mulches, we have cultivation. There are a whole lot of other ways you can control weeds, and I do believe I will continue on in a series on what we do with some of our weedy buddies there. Okay, so aloha. I hope this is illuminating, and y'all hang loose and be safe.